What if the most misunderstood word in spirituality is not magic or ritual or even secret, but occult? Because the moment most people hear the word occultism, their mind instantly goes to darkness, forbidden ceremonies, horror movies, strange symbols, and dangerous powers. But the word occult does not originally mean evil. It means hidden. It means veiled. It means something that is not immediately visible to the ordinary eye. And that changes everything. Because if occultism means the study of what is hidden, then the real question is not, is occultism dark? The real question is, hidden from what? Hidden from whom? And why did so many civilizations believe that behind the visible world there was another order of reality waiting to be understood? Occultism is not one religion. It is not one church, one book, one prophet, or one single doctrine. It is a vast stream of symbolic, spiritual, philosophical, and initiatory traditions that try to understand the invisible relationship between the human being, nature, the cosmos, and the divine. In simple terms, occultism is the study of hidden knowledge, but not hidden in the sense that someone locked it away in a secret room. Hidden because it requires a different way of seeing. A symbol can be right in front of you and still remain invisible if you do not know how to read it. That is why occultism has always been connected to symbols, rituals, numbers, stars, sacred geometry, dreams, myths, inner transformation, and the mysterious structure of consciousness itself. It asks questions that modern life often avoids. What is the soul? Is the universe only matter, or does it also have meaning? Are ancient symbols just primitive art, or are they maps of the human spirit? To understand occultism, we have to go back before the modern world, before the word became surrounded by fear. In the ancient pagan world, nature was not seen as dead matter. The forest, the river, the sun, the moon, the seasons, the birth of a child, the death of the body, and the movement of the stars were all experienced as sacred. Paganism, in its broad historical sense, refers to many traditions before Christianity that honored the forces of nature, the gods, the ancestors, and the cycles of fertility, death, and rebirth. It was not one single religion. It was a living relationship with a cosmos that felt animated, intelligent, and symbolic. The ancient Egyptians saw the journey of the soul reflected in the journey of the sun. The Greeks had mystery schools where initiation was not just about belief, but about transformation. In the mysteries of Eleusis, for example, people entered ritual dramas connected to death, renewal, and the hidden life of the soul. In Mesopotamia, the heavens were read as a sacred text. In many traditions, the sky was not just space, it was meaning. This is one of the foundations of occult thought. The visible world reflects an invisible order. Later, this idea became one of the great keys of Hermetic philosophy, as above, so below. This phrase is repeated a lot today, but its meaning is much deeper than a slogan. It suggests that the human being and the universe mirror each other. The microcosm reflects the macrocosm. The inner world and the outer world are connected. Hermeticism, associated with the legendary figure Hermes Trismegistus, became one of the central pillars of Western esotericism. The Hermetic texts taught that the human being is not simply a passive creature trapped in matter, but a conscious being capable of awakening to divine knowledge, not through blind belief alone, but through purification, contemplation, wisdom, and inner transformation. This is where occultism becomes much more than curiosity. It becomes a path of seeing. And honestly, I think this is where many people misunderstand the entire subject. They imagine occultism as a search for power over the world, but at its highest level, it is a search for understanding within the self, the real. Laboratory is consciousness. This is also why the occult sciences became so important. Now, the term occult sciences can be misleading today, because these are not sciences in the modern laboratory sense. They are traditional symbolic systems that try to read the hidden patterns of reality. Astrology studied the relationship between celestial cycles and human life. Alchemy was not only about turning lead into gold, it was also about transforming the raw, divided human being into something integrated, luminous, and whole. Magic, especially ceremonial magic, worked with symbol, intention, ritual, imagination, and disciplined will. Kabbalah, especially in its Hermetic form, became a map of creation, consciousness, and the soul's return to the divine source. Divination tried to read patterns through symbols. Numerology and sacred geometry saw number and form as expressions of cosmic order. Modern science asks, what is matter made of? The occult sciences often asked, what is meaning made of? That does not mean we should confuse symbolic systems with modern physics or chemistry. A mature understanding of occultism does not need exaggeration. Its value is not that it replaces science. Its value is that it explores a dimension of human experience that pure materialism often leaves untouched. Symbol, soul, myth, transformation, and sacred meaning. And this is where the idea of the perennial philosophy becomes important. The perennial philosophy is the idea that beneath many spiritual traditions, there are shared truths, not identical doctrines, not the same rituals, and not the same mythology, but recurring insights. The idea that there is a divine reality behind appearances, that the human being is more than the body and the ego, that spiritual life involves awakening, purification, death and rebirth, union, return, or remembrance. Aldous Huxley helped popularize the term perennial philosophy in the modern world. Thinkers like René Guénon criticized the spiritual emptiness of modern materialism and argued that traditional civilizations preserved sacred knowledge through symbols and rites. Mircea Eliade showed how deeply human beings organize their world around the sacred. Carl Jung, from a psychological point of view, saw ancient symbols as expressions of deep structures within the psyche. You do not have to agree with all of them to see the pattern. Across cultures, humanity kept returning to the same intuition. Reality has layers. The tree, the serpent, the ladder, the circle, the center, the temple, the mountain, the hidden name, the inner light, the sacred marriage, the descent into darkness, and the rebirth into illumination. These images appear again and again because they speak to something universal inside us. And that is one reason occultism connects with so many traditions. Hermeticism, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Kabbalah, alchemy, Christian mysticism, Sufism, Tantra, Rosicrucianism, Theosophy, Freemasonry, and many initiatory orders. Each has its own language, its own theology, its own warnings, and its own boundaries. But many of them share a symbolic grammar. The human being is fallen, asleep, fragmented, or forgetful, and the spiritual path is a path of reintegration. This also explains why occultism has often been controversial. In many religious cultures, hidden knowledge was viewed with suspicion. And to be fair, not every practice labeled occult is wise, safe, or spiritually mature. Human beings can misuse anything. Religion, politics, psychology, money, sexuality, power, and spirituality. Occultism is no exception. But the prejudice against occultism often comes from confusing every form of hidden knowledge with evil. That is too simple. Occultism is not automatically Satanism. It is not automatically witchcraft. It is not automatically manipulation, superstition, or rebellion against God. Sometimes it is simply the study of symbols. Sometimes it is mystical philosophy. Sometimes it is spiritual psychology. Sometimes it is ritual discipline. Sometimes it is a way of asking how the visible world relates to invisible meaning. When I understood this distinction, occultism stopped looking like a dark room and started looking like a library with the lights turned off. The question was no longer, should we be afraid of this? The question became, how do we learn to read it responsibly? If this video is helping you see the subject with more clarity, leave a like, because it helps deeper. Explanations reach people who are tired of shallow interpretations based on fear. Now, we also have to talk about secret societies, because for many people, this is where occultism becomes suspicious. Why secrecy? Why symbols? Why degrees? Why initiation? The answer is more interesting than most conspiracy theories. In many initiatory traditions, secrecy was not only about hiding information, it was a method of teaching. Knowledge was revealed gradually, because symbols can be misunderstood when they are taken too literally or given without preparation. A symbol is powerful precisely because it works on more than one level. It can teach the intellect, but it can also shape the imagination, the emotions, the moral life, and the sense of identity. Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and many other initiatory movements used rituals, degrees, oaths, and symbols to create a structured path of inner formation. Some were more philosophical. Some were more magical. Some were more mystical. Some were deeply influenced by Christianity, Kabbalah, Hermeticism, Egyptian symbolism, or Renaissance esotericism. The real secret was not always hidden because it was evil. Sometimes it was hidden because it could be misunderstood. Sometimes it was hidden because the process mattered more than the information. Think of it this way. You can read the word death in a book and understand it intellectually. But to pass through a ritual, symbolizing death and rebirth can affect the psyche in a different way. Initiation is not just about learning ideas. It is about becoming capable of carrying them. Of course, this does not mean every secret society is noble or that every occult teacher is trustworthy. Discernment is essential. The occult world has produced saints, philosophers, charlatans, poets, manipulators, mystics, scholars, and rebels. That is why serious study matters. In the Renaissance, European thinkers rediscovered and reinterpreted ancient Hermetic, Platonic, and Kabbalistic ideas. Figures like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola believed that ancient wisdom traditions could be brought into dialogue with Christianity and philosophy. The universe was seen as a great chain of being, filled with correspondences, signs, intelligences, and symbolic relationships. Then, in the 19th century, occultism became more visible as a modern movement. Eliphas Levi helped shape the language of modern Western magic. Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society connected Western esotericism with ideas from Indian and Buddhist traditions, though not without controversy. The Golden Dawn systematized ceremonial magic, tarot, astrology, Kabbalah, and ritual work into a highly influential structure. Later, Aleister Crowley became one of the most controversial figures in modern occultism, especially through Thelema and the famous phrase, "Do what thou wilt," which is often misunderstood when separated from its deeper context of true will. By the 20th and 21st centuries, occult ideas entered psychology, art, literature, music, cinema, counterculture, New Age spirituality, and the internet. Today, occult symbols are everywhere. On clothing, album covers, tattoos, movies, logos, memes, and social media. But here is the strange twist. Occultism is more visible than ever, and yet it is often less understood than ever. Because the modern world turns symbols into aesthetics. It takes the eye, the serpent, the pentagram, the moon, the goat, the triangle, the black robe, and the ancient alphabet, and often strips them of context. So the challenge today is not finding hidden information. The challenge is separating depth from noise. And maybe that is why occultism still matters. We live in a world with more information than any civilization before us, but many people feel spiritually starving. We can measure the body, scan the brain, map the genome, and send machines into space, yet still struggle to answer the most human questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is death? What is consciousness? Why do symbols move us? Why does beauty feel sacred? Why do we feel that life should mean something? Occultism does not give one simple answer to all of this, but it preserves a forgotten way of asking. It says, look deeper. Look at the myth behind the story. Look at the soul behind the personality. Look at the pattern behind the event. Look at the meaning behind the symbol. Look at the divine spark hidden inside ordinary life. Comment below. Before watching this, did you see occultism more as something dangerous or as a forgotten language of the sacred? I genuinely think the answers will reveal how deeply this word has been shaped by fear, movies, religion, and culture. At its highest level, occultism is not about escaping the world. It is about seeing the world as transparent to something greater. The stone is still a stone, but it may also be a symbol of foundation. The sun is still a star, but it may also be an image of divine intelligence. The human body is still biological, but it may also be a temple. The night is still dark, but it may also be the womb of transformation. This is the heart of the occult imagination. Nothing is only what it appears to be. That is why alchemy speaks of turning lead into gold. Not because every alchemist was simply obsessed with metal, but because lead is also the heavy, unconscious, unrefined condition of the human being. Gold is the awakened, integrated, solar state of the soul. That is why Kabbalah speaks of emanation and return. That is why Hermeticism speaks of ascent. That is why Gnosticism speaks of awakening from ignorance. That is why mystery traditions speak of death before rebirth. Again and again, the message returns in different languages. The human being contains something hidden, and spiritual life is the art of uncovering it. So what is occultism? It is the study of hidden knowledge. It is a symbolic language. It is a historical current. It is a spiritual discipline. It is a philosophical rebellion against a world that says only matter is real. It is a library of humanity's attempts to understand the invisible architecture behind life. But it is also a mirror, because the deepest occult question is not, what secrets are they hiding from us? It is, what is hidden inside us? And perhaps that is why the subject has always attracted both fear and fascination. The occult is not only about angels, demons, planets, rituals, temples, and ancient books. It is about the unknown dimension of the human being, the part of us that dreams in symbols, the part of us that senses meaning before it can explain it, the part of us that knows a purely material life is not enough, the part of us that looks at the stars and feels, even for a second, that the universe is not empty. In the end, occultism is not darkness. Darkness is only what we call a place before we learn how to see inside it. And maybe the real purpose of occult knowledge was never to make us feel superior, special, or powerful. Maybe its purpose was to make us more awake, more humble, more connected to nature, to the cosmos, to God, and to the hidden depths of our own soul. If you want to keep walking through these ideas with clarity instead of fear, subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who thinks occultism is only superstition or something evil, because this conversation is much deeper than that. And click the playlist appearing on screen now, because the next step is to explore the symbols, traditions, and hidden philosophies that shaped the spiritual history of the world.